Welcome back to Virtual Tombstone. My name is Joshua Carpenter. I'm with the band Wanted, and you're going to hear us in just a second. Let's go down to the Grundy County auction.
When I saw something I just had to have, my mind told me I should proceed with caution, but my heart said go ahead and make a bid on that. And I said, hey pretty lady, won't you give me a sign? I'll give anything to make you mine, oh mine. I'll do your bidding and be at your beck and call. I've never seen anyone looking so fine, and I gotta have her, she's one of a kind. I'm going once, going twice, I'm sold to the lady in the second row. She's an 8, she's a 9, she's a 10, I know. She's got ruby red lips, red hair, green eyes. I'm about to bid my heart goodbye.
We changed the words because she's got green eyes.
The auctioneer was going about a mile a minute. He was taking bids and calling them out loud. Well, I guess I was really getting in it, 'cause I just shouted out above the crowd. And I said, hey pretty lady, won't you give me a sign? I'll give anything to make you mine, oh mine. I'll do your bidding and be at your beck and call. I've never seen anyone looking so fine, man. I gotta have her, she's a one of a kind. I'm going once, going twice. I'm sold to the lady in the long black dress. 'Cause you won my heart, it was no contest. With the ruby red lips, red hair, green eyes. I'm about to bid my heart goodbye. Woo! We found love on the auction block and I hauled her heart away. We still love to laugh about the way we met that day when I said, hey pretty lady, won't you give me a sign? I'll give anything to make you mine, oh mine. I'll do your bidding and be at your beck and call. I've never seen anyone looking so fine, man. I gotta have her, she's a one of a kind. I'm going once, going twice. I'm sold to the lady in the second row. She's an 8, she's a 9, she's a 10, I know. She's got ruby red lips, red hair, green eyes. I'm about to bid my heart goodbye.
Yeah. All right. So we are at the south edge of town. Tough Nut Street is right behind the camera there. Tough Nut runs back and forth that way. The history bit, we're going to go talk about the Tough Nut Mine, but right now, let's listen to Silver King Minstrels with Dang Me.
Gee, George. Well, here I sit high, just getting an idea. And no one but a fool would live like this. Out all night, running wild. The wife sitting home with a month-old child and said, dang me, you ought to take a rope and hang me right from the highest tree. Oh, woman, won't you weep for me? Well, here I'm sitting with the rest of the guys, 6 round boys, and I'm on 5. I spent the groceries and most of the rent like $15, having 27 cents. Dang, oh, they ought to take a rope and hang me out from the highest tree. Oh, woman, won't you weep for me? Roses are red, clouds are purple, sugar sweet, so maple circle. I'm the 7th out of 7 sons. If there was a pistol, I'm a son of a gun. I said, dang, well, they all take a rope and hang me out from the highest tree. Ah, woman, won't you weep for me?
Welcome to the mines of Tombstone. You can see behind me, this was the site of the Good Enough Mine. We're going to tell you a little bit of the history off of this little plaque, and you can read it yourself. She's going to zoom in on it. everything that happened here because of the lure of the silver and gold found by Ed Schifflin in the hills of Tombstone in 1877. We talked about Ed last week over at Schifflin Hall on the other corner of town. Here we are on the south east side. Let's see. The lack of plentiful water supply was a problem here. This is the scene of, right underneath us is one of the very large mines actually spread out on all the hills over here. Mills were built on the San Pedro River. That's a few miles from here, 10 miles from Tombstone. Ore was hauled in wagons pulled by 20-team horses or mules over steep, rugged terrain. The water problem seemed to be solved when water was struck in the Sulphurette mine at 520 feet. But the water that seemed to savior proved to be the mine's executioner. The same water table was soon encountered in all the other mines. In 1883, gigantic Cornish-style pumps were installed to pump the water from the mines at the Contention and the Grand Central mines. In 1886, the pumps at the Grand Central burned, leaving only the pumps at the Contention to handle all the water. You can read the rest of it here, but we are standing over one of the open shafts. We're going to turn and spin all the way around. There's you can take a tour of the Good Enough mine, so that's where that starts. You go underground, and if we walk over here, we're going to see an old enclosure that literally cordons off a deep pit. And keep in mind, again, we are on the southeast corner of town. You can see behind this fence, there's a deep hole. The sign here says it's the $1 Million Stope. At 1:00 p.m. on April 21st, 1907, the $1 Million Stope was created when the Good Enough Stope caved in, dropping a horse and wagon 75 feet into that hole right there. The driver climbed down to see why his horse had stumbled, only to find himself standing on the edge of a gaping aperture with his horse and wagon far below. The stope was estimated to be 300 feet by 200 feet by 100 feet deep, and only 1 to 2 feet from the surface in places, so it's like an underground cave. Over $1 million in ore had been taken from the Good Enough here, this mine here, in the 1880s. The horse survived, by the way, and was let out through an underground passage. This has been a major tourist attraction for years. We're going to turn just a little bit. We'll talk a lot more about the mines and the amount of silver and gold that was taken out of here, especially silver. But right now we're going to turn. We're on the, like I said, the southeast corner of town. If we turn all the way to our left, now our back is to the Good Enough mine. We're looking right down, what would this be, 5th Street, I think, isn't that right? And you can see the Crystal Palace rising, the highest building there on the left corner of that cross section. And behind the Crystal Palace and right down 5th Street, you got a clear shot at the Dragoon Mountains, one of the prettiest views from this town. And you can literally see the other side of town from here. Not all the houses and all that, but the main piece of town, you can see the other side. And in the near foreground here is the Longhorn Restaurant, kitty corner from the Crystal Palace. There's lots of other restaurants and places that we'll talk about as we go, but we're going to get you slowly oriented to the town and show you around. So last time we were at close to the north side of town at Schifflin Hall, North Central. Here we're on the southeastern corner, and we're going to go up to the Crystal maybe a little bit later. And I hope you enjoyed the show and the history, and we'll do a little newsy bit here, and then we'll be out. Take care. This week we decided to add just a short bit of news from current day Tombstone. Behind me, we're going to walk over and see the Crystal Palace in the background. You're going to hear a lot about this place in the historical bits and also in the modern day. But this was the scene of a meeting. About 50 citizens and business owners this week all met to discuss opening or reopening and what that might mean. It was a pretty spicy meeting according to the Facebook posts, and there's a lot of controversy about whether the town should be open or should not be open. Of course, the same conflict that's going on around the country, health versus economics. So that's the news from Tombstone this week. Hope you enjoyed virtual Tombstone. Joshua Carpenter signing off from the band Wanted. We'll see you next week.